James, you forgot your watch.
Oh, thank you.
You might miss that. Okay, let's take this back just a little bit. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to go back over the Bergmuller because there were some things that I did in the lesson that I wanted to fix in the video. It wasn't anything you did, but we're still going to work on all your stuff. We're still going to work on the Bergmuller, but I want to reintroduce it. Okay? So anyway, I don't have a lot of experience videotaping myself, as evidenced by Jack having me adjust the screen, or James, so that I can actually see you. Anyway, so let's get started, and let me see your assignment book, and I will check your theory first. Did you have a good week?
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, you have a lot of time practicing too.
Oh, excellent. All right.
James theory.
Oh, well, you know what? He did yours this week.
Yeah, he did, but I think he did 24. I did 24.
Yeah,
I was a page behind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so you had the different rhythms within the different time signatures. That just looks awesome. Perfect job, and good notation on those rests and the notes. Excellent job. Now what you do then is you'll take the other book that you guys got switched this week, and I want you to do page 24 for next week. All right, which basically this first thing is pretty easy because you're basically just copying everything the way it is. Okay, but then what I want you to do is I want you to transpose that this week, and that means that we're going to transpose it to G minor. So if we're transposing in something to G minor from F, everything is going to be up a whole step. All right, so instead of home plate being on F like it is here that you see in your book, home plate is now going to be on G. So everything you wrote here is going to be up one whole step. All right, and then I will listen to what you wrote next time. All right, any questions about that, Jack?
No.
Okay, transposing again. We've done some transposing like when we do happy birthday, right? Transposing is taking the same patterns, but home plate's in a different spot. All right, so that's your assignment out of here. Then let's do your warm-up. Let's start with the Hanon today. All right, let's see what we had. Hanon number 1.
76.
Okay, and how did you feel that speed was this week for you?
It was, for the start of it, I couldn't get into the thing, and my left hand was slower.
Yes.
So I think I practiced enough so that it could go together.
Okay, all right. That was smart to isolate the left hand. Very good. All right, so 76. Was awesome. Very good at that tempo. Okay, now I would say I would do maybe a half of this week at 76, and then, because you're right on the edge of bumping it up, then bump it up to 80. So next week when I listen to it, I'll listen to it at 80, all right? But I would give yourself just a few more days a 76.
Okay.
All right, excellent. Your technique was wonderful. Now, let's go ahead, because today we're going to be talking about a piece by Johann Friedrich Burgmüller, who is a Romantic composer. We are going to do the A minor scale, all right, which I signed last week, and Happy Birthday in the key of C, because all those coordinate with what we're going to be learning. So let's do your scale next, along with the pedal progression and the arpeggio. And then I'm going to write down your Hanon. So you have that.
Oh, I messed up. So.
That's okay. Good. Let's put that with the metronome. Let's say maybe, I think for a second. That's too slow. Let's try 72. Very nice. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the pedal progression. Good. And then the arpeggio. Now, when you're doing this, the left hand, when it's an all white key arpeggio, you're going to do, let's see. You had that correct, actually. So can you do that one more time for me? And make sure you're rotating the weight, transferring the weight as you're going up. As you're playing, just make a mental note. I want to keep working on curving my fifth finger. Okay? And those are just little things that over time, gradually you build. You know, like having a relaxed wrist, or being able to play, you know, like you're building with the Hanon, like increasing the speed with the Hanon. You're doing the same thing as far as, you know, making a mental note. Okay, I'm going to continue to work on curving my fifth finger.
So,
all right?
Like
that. You need to make sure you're playing on the fingertip, right? Not on this part of the finger, all right? Yes. And so it's, you know, it's a little more difficult to do that with a fifth finger, but that's just something that you're going to think about as you go along just during the week and you're working on things. Now, I think what we're going to do, one more word about the arpeggio. When you do an arpeggio, if you're finding that it's not completely clean, like you're not hitting those notes dead on, try and do staccato practice, slow staccato practice hand separately, because that will clean that up, clean so many things up musically. That will clean that arpeggio up quicker than anything you could ever do. All right, and then put it back doing it legato after you've practiced it that way.
So,
right?
So it's like that?
Yes, exactly like that. And that works with so many things that you learn in piano. That's a wonderful practice tool to clean things up. All right, so next week what we're going to do is I'm going to give you 4 octaves of the A minor scale. 4. And so that just means that you're just going to start lower. All right, I would start about here. What I want to generally keep in mind is I usually like to have about the same amount of keys left over here as I do up there. And so I think starting around here for doing 4 octaves is a really good place to start, you know. And in addition to that, I'd like you to do the 4 octaves in the arpeggio as well. Okay? All right. So let's go to Happy Birthday, and I'd like to hear that in preparation for our Bergmuller piece in the key of C.
Key of C.
Key of C. Now, why don't you get the chart out so you can look at it, and here it's right tucked behind there, the Happy Birthday chart. Okay, so when you're doing this, the Happy Birthday, the melody line in the right hand always starts on the dominant, all right? Now, the blacked chords, you're still going to do the 1, the 5, the 1, but the melody line starts on the dominant key. I think if you can just remember that, it'll kind of fall into place. So what's the dominant in the key of C? It's G, yes. Yes, sir. Okay, good. Let's try it. This is a perfect example of what we talked about in your theory. It's transposition, because we've done this down in the key of F and the key of G, and now we're doing it in the key of C. All right, which happens to be the relative major of the key of the piece we're going to. All right, so we are playing a piece by Bergmuller there, and this is from the early intermediate book. I want to talk about this and introduce the piece. All right, so just bear with me. This composer is a German composer, and primarily a German composer and a pianist. He wrote a ton of wonderful music for the piano, but he spent most of his life in Paris. So a lot of his music has what you would think would be French titles, like L'Arabesque, La Pastorale, you know, rather than what you would think would be maybe something more German sounding. So also he was a Romantic era composer, and so his pieces are really flowery and they're full of drama and excitement. So what I want to discuss with this piece first is looking at the key it's based around, okay? Looking at home plate, if we look at this. So what do you think, taking a look at this piece?
Keys of C, keys of A.
Uh-huh. And is it A major or A minor?
It's A minor.
A minor, yes. Okay, so as we're looking at this, and the key signature, there are no sharps or flats there. So you know when you begin a piece, you have one of two choices. It's either going to be a major key, or it's going to be the relative minor, which we've talked about finding the relative minor. We go down how many half steps to get to the relative minor?
2.
One more. 1, 2, 3, and there's our relative minor. They share the same key signature, but a different home note. And so we can tell because, as you said, it's on A, it begins on A, and lo and behold, it ends on A. All right, so that's your clue that that's my home note. So if we look here, all the left hand is in this first section are just blocked chords, you know? And so we just did this chord progression. So you can see the 1 chords all through here, and then a 4 chord, and then it goes to the parallel or the relative major right in here, and then you can see the C chord and the G7 chord, back to the 1 chord, right? And then it repeats, goes back to the minor chord, right? So it's going back and forth Mostly it's in the minor key, but there are sections where it'll do some major stuff too, which again, that kind of creates interest and drama in the piece. So I'm going to demonstrate this to you in a minute, but I wanted to finish talking about the chord patterns. So basically this uses either the 1, the 4, or the 5 as far as the pattern in the music all the way through this piece. Right? And if you can identify the pattern, it's so much easier to learn the piece. All right? And so I want you to look too, in addition to the chord structure, I want you to look at the form of the music. And so music has different forms. And so think of it like we're gonna take this in sections. So section A, and we talked about this in your last book. Section A is a certain melodic line or theme that it all kind of goes together. All right, so you can really hear that at this beginning part. So I'm going to demonstrate this, but I'm going to play it a little bit here now too. All right, so you can tell that whole section kind of goes together. But look what happens here after the second ending. I would say this section is different. What do you think? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
All right. And so this section we're going to call section B. But this is where it really gets interesting. Look what happens here.
Turns back to A.
It does. And so we have section A, and then we have a section B, and then it goes back and repeats section A again. So that ABA form is in a lot of pieces you've already played, you know. And it's in this piece. Now, like I said, before I play this, I also want to talk about the musical terms, all right? Because there's a few in here that we really haven't had before in some of your other pieces. So the first of is these markings right here. Those are called staccatissimo. And that means when you do those, you want them to be really, really crisp staccatos all the way through, like extra crispy staccatos. So, and that's going to contrast when you have these legato sections with the opposite hand. It really makes the music interesting, you know. So we can add drama in the music through our dynamics. We can add it through changing the tempo, you know, or the speed of the piece, and we can also add it through how we articulate a note, which is, do we play it staccato? Do we play it legato? Do we play it somewhere in between? You know. The second thing I want to point out right here, you have a sudden burst of loud there. That's forzando. That's going to be really big, along with this accent. You want to make a big deal of that as well. Then, as looking ahead in section B, we see the crescendo, decrescendo, and then it says diminuendo and poco rallentando. So you know what a diminuendo means. You get lighter and lighter and lighter, and then poco means little. Rallentando is kind of interchangeable for the word ritardando. So getting softer with a little ritardando, all right, or a little slowdown. Let's just say not ritardando, rallentando, a little slowdown. Then after you slow the tempo down, look what happens here. What does it say? A tempo. And that means we're going back to the original tempo, and all of a sudden it picks up. I love it when pieces of music have a slowdown, it right smack dab in the middle of it, and it leaves your audience wondering, what's going to happen next? And then all of a sudden, it speeds back up. That's really neat. Then here, I don't think we've had this in some of our music before, dolce, which means sweetly. And so on this part, notice how it gets soft. Dolce sections are usually soft, and you're going to want to make sure you're shaping that little phrase in there almost as if you were singing it. Okay, and then it goes back to forte again, and a big, strong finish. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate this for you, and then we're going to work on it together. All right, so let's trade. Okay. section B. One other thing before we trade back is you have to decide, okay, what has the melody line? Well, I think looking at this, it's pretty obvious that your right hand is the most important part, not these blocked chords. They're important because they're adding drama to things, but this is the lead. So this always needs to be under the melody. Okay, so now that I've demonstrated that, let's switch back, and I'd like to try a little bit of this and then talk about how I want you to practice this and break it down into small workable chunks so you can learn it. Okay, so let's just look at it, and you've seen this before, but let's take another look at it, and then let's try to maybe do to the first ending and just see how it goes. All right? Now, instead of being on this A, you want to move right there. Okay? All right. Yes, perfect. Nice. Now make sure at the end there that you slur that at the end. Now, what I loved the most about what you did was this right there. That was so great when you put that accent in there. It really made the music come to life. I love that part. Now, so again, when I look at a piece of music that I want to learn, I take it in small, workable chunks. All right, you have to, or else it's overwhelming. So what I would say is, like, let's say we're going to take this next chunk, all right, and maybe get to there, let's say, in the next couple of days. All right, what I would do is I would practice hands separately several times each hand till it begins to feel comfortable. Then I would try it together, and then I would piece it with the section I feel at the beginning that I know pretty well. Right? Then after that, moving on, I would add the next section with the same strategy. Hands separate, hands together, and then adding what I already know. Right? Same, next day, same thing. Hands separate, hands together, adding what I already know. And so I think this piece is short enough where you could probably have all notes of this for me for next time, especially because this section repeats. You know, I like that you're paying attention to the detail that's in there. So just make sure as you're practicing breaking things down, and then also there's always spots in a piece that I would call trouble spots. I would circle those, and I would take those by themselves. I would isolate them, even if it's just like going from this end of this beat to the first beat, or even if it's somewhere within a measure, just practicing that little chunk of it repeatedly and then putting it back with the overall thing will help you tackle the piece, and it'll be a more efficient use of your time. All right, so do you have any questions?
For this part over here,
Yes.
the melody switch to the left hand, right?
It doesn't. No, I'm hearing the melody up here. All right. This is doing a little.
Okay.
All right. So the melody still stays in the right hand.
So the
Yes.
the melody never switched to the left hand.
It does not switch to the left hand. No. And so you're going to want to bring that out and keep that light underneath it. Da, 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 da. And those are going to be a little more difficult to master because it's the left hand, and normally our left hand isn't as strong as the right hand. I find I need to, even though I am left-handed, focus on my left hand a lot when I have quick notes that are played, quick patterns like this, like 16th notes, for example. Okay, so do you have any other questions?
This part you lift up, right?
Yes, whenever you see the end of a phrase, we've talked about that's where you lift, not rest, but you're not connecting it. And so I think if we draw these little breath marks in, that helps you know where to connect and where to lift. Okay? Now, before you go, I would love to hear the Wild Horseman too. Okay? Okay, anytime you're ready, you can start. Very nice. Okay, I think it might be good with this to take the metronome with this to steady it up a little and to get that left hand to cooperate. So I think one thing that would be really helpful is for you to target this middle section here where the left hand takes over and has the lead by itself a lot with the metronome to get it to cooperate with the rest of the piece, because it's almost there. But I think if you'd spend a week just looking at that aspect of things, I think it'll come together. And then looking at that treble spot, right? I would call that a little treble spot right in there in the left hand. Okay, so we're 6/8, so we're going to have 2 pulses, a measure. Okay. Probably a really good tempo. What do you think?
I think I can.
Okay. All right. So we're going to do a dotted quarter is 70. I'm writing the wrong week. Okay. Oh my.
I was going to ask you how would I put it into 6/8 on the metronome.
So what you do, since the natural pulse is on the 1st and 4th beat, you're going to put it for what you would say 2/4. All right, because you're going to hear 2 clicks per measure with 6/8 time. 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, da 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 da. Can you feel that heartbeat? Okay, and that's it for this week. And I will see you guys next Sunday night. All right. There you are. Good work, guys. Sounds wonderful. All right. I'm ready for fall.
Yeah.